Okay, let's correct the volume test. Number one says, which of the figures has a greater volume? So I'm going to have to find the volume of each of these figures. No shortcuts. I'm not going to just assume that the taller one is the bigger volume. I'm going to do the work. So the formula is V equals pi r squared h. I'm going to write it twice because I have two different cylinders and I'm going to have to fill it in two different times. Here, pi times the radius is 3 squared times the height is 3. When I punch that into my calculator, I get pi times 3 squared times 3. The volume here is 84.8. Right? This other one is pi times the radius is 2 squared times the height is 6. When I punch that into my calculator, I get times 6, 75.4. And look at that. The shorter cylinder had the bigger volume. So the answer is number one has the greater volume. Number two, what is the volume of this cylinder? So I'm going to write the formula for volume of a cylinder. My formula chart says this. I know that this is a circular base, so I have to replace the big B with pi r squared times h. When I fill this in, pi times my radius is 5 times my height is 9. I'm going to get my calculator. Pi times 5 squared times 9. Bippity boppity boo. 706.9. There's my answer. Number 3. This is a sphere. So if you look on your formula chart, it'll tell you that the formula for a sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed. And my radius is 17. So all I need to fill in place of the r is that 17 cubed. So when I put this in, I do control divide, 4/3 times pi times 17, and then I'm going to use this key for an exponent box, to the third power. So my answer is 20,579.5. There's my answer. Number 4, can of chili. I know that a can is shaped like this. It's a cylinder, and it tells me that it has a base area of 19. That means this entire base has an area of 19. Guys, that is your big B. So, and a height of 5. So, I don't need to break down the big B. They've already done it for me. The formula I'm going to use is what's on the formula chart, big B times H. There it is, big B times H. And 19 times 5 is 95. Number 5, volume of a cone. The area of the base is 147. So I'm just going to use the formula that asks for the area of the base. It tells me that the area of the base, the big B, is 147. The height is 9. So when I fill this in, I'm just doing 1/3 times 147 times 9. 1/3 times 147 times 9. 441. Number 6, volume of a sphere if the radius is 3. So my formula, according to my formula chart, is 4/3 pi r cubed. The only thing I have to fill in is the r. 4/3 times pi times, it tells me right there, my r is 3. 3 to the third power. Get my calculator out, control divide, 4/3 times pi times 3 cubed. There's my answer, 113.1. But look at this. did multiply pi out in the answer choices. That's okay. All I got to do is take my answer and divide it by pi and see what I get. Divided by pi. And I get 36 pi. And if you want to check yourself, 36 times pi is 113.1. Okay? Number 7, find the volume of the sphere if r equals 5. Again, these answer choices are in terms of pi. So I'm going to write my formula for volume of a sphere. And then I'm going to plug in my value for r, which is 5, 4/3 times pi times 5 cubed. Okay, if they are leaving your answer choices in terms of pi, you would just need to multiply everything except pi. So you would do control divide, 4/3 times 5 cubed, and you get 500 over 3. Okay? If your answer choices are not in terms of pi, you would multiply it all out, and you would do control divide, 4/3 times pi times 5 cubed, and you get 523.6. And if you do this, if you do control divide and you do 500 times pi on the top and then 3 on the bottom and hit control enter, get the same answer. Okay, so this is actually equal to 523.6. Okay. Number 8, Whitney filled a container as shown in the diagram with laundry detergent. She then emptied the contents into a clothes washer. If she repeated this process 5 times, so she did this a total of 6 times because she repeated it 5 times. Excuse me, another 5 times. Which expression can be used to find the total amount of detergent? Okay, so we've got a cone. So I'm going to write my formula, 1/3 pi r squared, because the area of the circle is pi r squared times the height. And I'm just going to fill in the information that I have. I have 1/3 times pi times the radius times the height. And I need to multiply all of this by 6. So let me just get the 6 here. All right. So I only see one answer choice. Nope, that's not it. All right, so let's simplify this a little bit. If I multiply this all out, I've got 1 times pi times 2 squared times 3. 6 times 1 times pi times 2 squared times 3. 1 times pi is pi times 4 times 3. And then on bottom, I've got 3 times 1 times 1 times 1. It's just 3. And then those 3's cancel. Let's see, no, they didn't cancel out the 3's. What they did was they canceled out here. They went 3 goes into 3 one time, and it goes into 6 2 times. So what I'm left with is 2 times pi times 4 times 3. Right there. That one was a little complicated. All right. Number 9, another reading question. An ice cream cone measures 4 inches high. So this is my H. And it has a radius of 1.5. Which formula would you use to determine the volume of the pudding? So we've got a cone. Here's my formula. 1/3 times pi r squared h. If I fill this out, 1/3 times pi times 1.5 squared times 4. So this one is out. I don't see any pi in this one anywhere. I also don't see that my 1.5 is squared. Okay? These are all, let's replace this 3.14 with pi. Make it look more like our formula. So here we've got a 1/3 times pi, it looks so pretty good so far, times 1.5 times 4, but the 1.5 should be squared. That's not it. Here we've got 1/3 times pi, we're good, times 1.5 times another 1.5 times 4. This is equal to 1.5 squared. This is the correct answer. Here we're missing the 1/3. That's not the answer. Number 10, what is the volume of the cylinder to the nearest whole number? So volume of a cylinder, on your formula chart it says this. We break down the big B to pi r squared times the height. So when I fill this in, I'm going to fill it in with that information. Pi times, my radius is 4, so it's 4 squared, times my height is 8. Put that into the calculator, and I get pi times 4 squared times 8, 402.1. And there's my answer right there. Number 11, we've got a cylinder-shaped tank. I'm going to draw my cylinder here. And it says that it has a base area of 6. So that means this whole thing, that's my big B. And then it tells me I have a volume of 69, and it wants to know the height. I'm going to use this formula on the formula chart and fill in what I have. I have my V. In place of the V, I'm going to put 69. I have my B. I don't know the H. At this point, you could either insolve, or you could just, this is a pretty simple one to solve. You have to divide both sides by 6. So H would equal 69 divided by 6, 11.5. There's my answer. Okay. Next, we've got a hemisphere. But to do this, I need to first start by finding the volume of the whole sphere. So the formula is 4/3 times pi times 1/2 cubed. So I'm going to do that first. Control divide, 4/3 times pi times, control divide, 1/2, and cube that. So here's the volume of the whole sphere. Okay, the volume of the whole sphere is this. I'm just going to put 0.52. And then I know that this is only a hemisphere, so I'm going to have to divide my answer by 2. So I'm going to leave my answer in my calculator. I'm just going to hit divide by 2. My answer is 0.26. And we'll just leave it at that. Okay. All right, number 13. The sphere has a volume of 972 pi. What is the radius? So sphere, so I need to start with this formula, pi r cubed, and then fill in what I have. This is the volume, is 972 pi, so I need to put that where the volume is in the formula. At this point, this would be a good time to simply solve using insolve. So I'm going to do menu 3-1, and I'm going to type this in. 972 pi has to equal 4/3 pi r cubed. And then make sure that you arrow out of the exponent, and then I'm going to do comma r, because that's what I'm missing. Comma, where's my r? 9. R equals 9. Okay, number 14, we have a silo composed of a hemisphere and a cylinder. The total height of the silo is 50 feet. We changed this on your test. The diameter here is 16, and the height of the cylinder is 42. Okay, so we've got two figures. We've got a cylinder, which is pi r squared h, and we've got half of a sphere, so we're going to do 4/3 pi r cubed, and then we got to remember to divide by 2. Okay, so when I fill this one in, I'm going to do pi times, now if my diameter is 16, that means my radius is 8, because you got to divide it by 2, times the height of 42. So the volume of the cylinder is pi times 8 squared times 42. And that equals, okay? Now the hemisphere. Let's see if I can. All right, so 4/3 times pi times the radius we said is 8 cubed. All of that goes on top. And then I'm going to divide the whole thing by 2. And I get 1,072.3. And then the total of the whole thing would be this plus this. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to add 8444.6. And I get 9516.93. And this is in feet cubed. Okay. Number 15, which one has the greatest volume? You can't tell by looking at it. You're gonna have to do the work. So for the sphere, I'm gonna write that formula down. 4/3 pi r cubed. The diameter is 4, so that means my radius is 2. So when I fill this in, 4/3 times pi times 2 cubed, and that is 33.5. Okay, this cylinder here, I'll do that over here, pi r squared times the height. So pi times, here this is my diameter, my radius has to be 2, 2 squared times 4. So when I do this, I'm going to get pi times 2 squared times 4. This is 50.3. And then here we have a cone, so this would be 1/3 pi r squared times the height. So fill that in. Here we have the diameter 4, my radius is 2, 2 squared times the height. So 1/3 times pi times 2 squared times 4. And this is 16.8. So we're comparing this to this to this. Which one is the biggest? The cylinder is the biggest, B. Okay. Number 16, a storage container in the shape of a bright circular cylinder is shown in the accompanying diagram. What is the volume? Cylinder, pi r squared h. This is my diameter. I need to divide that by 2 to get my radius. So pi times 4 squared times 10. Pi times 4 squared times 10. That equals 502.6. There's my answer right there. Okay. 17. In the diagram below, a right triangle cone has a diameter of 8 inches. So this is my diameter. That means that my radius equals 4. It's a cone, so my formula is 1/3 pi r squared h. Fill it in, 1/3 times pi times 4 squared times 12. Get out the calculator. 1/3 times pi times 4 squared times 12. 201. And that's as far as they rounded. Okay. Last one. Before you had some vocab questions that I'm not going to go over. So we've got a cylinder here, and they want to know which expression represents it. Notice that my answers are still in pi down here. So I'm going to do pi r squared h. And then when I fill this in, it's pi times, this is my diameter, so my radius would be 12 divided by 2, which equals 6. 6 squared times the height, which is 27. Now, if they left pi in their answers, the only thing that you would need to multiply out is the 6 squared times 27, 972 pi. Now, if you multiplied the pi out, you would get pi times 6 squared times 27, 3,053.6. And if you'll notice, if I do this down here, 972 times pi, I'll get 3,053.6. And that's it. The other two questions, one of the questions was a vocab question connecting the cones, spheres, and cylinders to the correct formula. And then the last question was a given question about who were the greatest math teachers. And I hope you didn't get that one wrong. That's it.